Welcome into the Invest Well Show. Again, I'm your host, Michael Wall, which you know if you've been listening and watching each and every week. Today, we're going to talk about on this show a topic that really affects the phase of life that you're in life, right? And so there's several investment phases. You need to really understand which one that you're in and how you can prepare your investments so that way they're set up to allow you to be successful in whatever phase you're in. So it's really talking about the phases of life and setting your investments up for success in those phases. Really, really powerful. A lot of people miss this because they've just been, thinking that they're going to keep doing things the way they've been doing it, or maybe, they're just kind of drinking the Kool-Aid of Wall Street, or I don't know what the answer is, but a lot of times they miss it. It's not just the investments that you have. It's actually the structure, and it's actually preparedness in such a way so that way things occur that are different in certain phases of your life than when you're, in other words, when you're 60 and 70, you're going to face things in 80 that you did not face when you were 20, 30, and 40, right? We know that. So why is that important? We're going to talk about this on today's show. Hey, before we jump into the show, I want to say thank you to our sponsors. Obviously, at this stage in the game, we've been very blessed to have the other companies that we're able to kind of help families with their wealth, as many of you know, for almost 20 years in. And that's Wall Private Wealth, U.S. Private Wealth, Wall Lehman. To learn more about them, just head over to Leanonthewall.com. Again, Leanonthewall.com. If you got questions about your wealth, tax planning, tax help, or business coaching and consulting, Leanonthewall.com. So I want to talk about the phases of life that you're in and preparing your investments on this show. Listen, this is so crucial. And what made me think about this is, if you've invested in the market for any period of time, you know that the market moves, right? It's not stagnant. I remember the old saying one time, there was a gentleman that said, hey, listen, I will tell you with absolute certainty which direction the market's going to go. And the crowd was all there, like, wow. Yeah, I want to know that. So you're going to tell me with 100% certainty that the market's going to go a certain direction? Yeah. And so the response was, okay, listen, I know with certainty the market is going to go one of three ways, right? It's either going to go up, down, or sideways, okay? You can guarantee the market's going to go one of those three ways. Well, when you look at investing, and if you, again, as I mentioned, if you've been investing for any period of time, you know that markets move. They're going to go up, they're going to go down, and they're going to move around, right? Up, down, move it all around, that kind of thing, right? Back in the day. What is that little song? I can't remember. Stand up, stand down, shake it all. I can't shake it all about. That's the Hokey Pokey song. There you go. I was trying to think, what are we talking about? Maggie, help me out here. She's over there making notes. But it really is important. And why this matters is because when you're younger and you're just kind of starting out and you're investing and you're putting money aside every month and you're trying to grow your wealth, right? And maybe you're listening to this and that's the category or really the phase of life that you're in right now. Well, if that's where you are, your need for the monies that you're putting away each and every month is not great. Obviously, you want to grow your wealth, right? But you're trying to be strategic in the process of setting monies aside. I call it your peace of mind account, right? So that way someday you can have investments in such a way that you can live off of, et cetera. So you're putting that money away. Your need for that money right now is not really there. Therefore, you don't need to have a ton of access to it. So market volatility, as the markets go up and markets go down, as they do, they don't really affect you that much. Now, if you're moving closer to the phase of life where you're retired or you're soon going to be retired, or maybe you are in retirement, several years into retirement, well, now you're in a different phase of life. And so now you've got this wealth that you've built, hopefully, by making good decisions along the way. And you're in a place where that wealth that you've built is now in a place where you're trying to take income from. Maybe you have a pension from a company. Maybe you have real estate that's generating revenue for you. Maybe you have other factors and things that are happening in your life. I don't know. But you got this wealth over here that you're literally looking to say, okay, I want to take some income from this in my life. Well, from time to time, you may have things arise, right? That you need to take larger chunks from your investments than just, your day-to-day income that you may need. And so why that matters, if you have sustained the philosophy where all of your investments are primarily just in the stock market, even if you're in opportunistic investments and you really believe that these investments are going to be successful long term, that's really irrelevant to the fact that as you're older, you may have some things arise, maybe health issues arise or other things arise, where you are in a place where you could financially need a lot of capital in a very short period of time, right? Maybe you have a major health situation and you're like, man, I need to take a lot of money out right now because, yeah, I got health insurance and I got this, but I'm going to need to spend money on this or need to spend money on that. Or maybe your kids end up being in a situation that's really tragic, God forbid, or something happens and you need to take money out. You have the wealth and you want to help them. Well, what happens in that phase of life, in the retirement phase of life, because you have things that can come at you that are different than when you were younger, and because you might need access to larger amounts of money than when you were younger. You know, when you were younger, you're kind of living on love, baby, right? You're literally, you don't have a lot, right? You're buying ramen noodles and Lipton noodles, and you're doing your thing. You're driving a beat up car. You're trying to find your way in life. Unless your parents have bought you everything, then you're in a different scenario. Mine didn't. We had to figure it out, right? So we were driving a purple Ford Escort, 5-speed. I mean, I'm driving down the road like a real man in that car, right? Anybody tells you they're driving a purple Ford Escort and they're acting like a real man is like, you know, that's a little bit of a stretch. But I was trying to find my way is the point. That's where you are there. So you don't have a need for a lot of wealth because you don't really have stuff. On the other side of life, when you're retired, you're starting to, and over the years, you've gotten accustomed to spending more money on more things. And so you potentially could have a greater need for wealth. Now, why is this important? You say, Mike, why are you bringing this up? Well, the reason I'm bringing it up is because my experience over the years, over the last almost 20 years of helping families protect, grow, reduce taxes on their wealth. Many of you know we've shared and commentated nationally on media like CNBC, Fox Business, Bloomberg, written for almost every financial publication that exists out there for years. And one of the sentiments that I continue to see that is missed is the fact of understanding the phases of life that you're in. And when you are in the retirement or soon to be retirement phase, and you might have the need for greater access to monies, if your investments are layered or set up in such a way where they are only in the market, and you need a lot of monies or a lot of wealth for a particular reason, well, what are you going to do if the market's down big? Let's say we go through a period of time. In fact, you may not know this, but most bear markets, that's times when the markets are negative. Most bear markets typically on average are about 8 months, right? So big market crashes like 2008, other times like that, typically about 8 months. And you may not have known that most of the drop of that bear market happens within the first 2 months. Did you know that? In most bear markets, the majority of the drop of the market, meaning the market coming down, part of the crash, right, the financial crash, it happens within the first 2 months. And so if you're in a place where you have a need for a lot of monies or a larger than normal amount, right, of access to your investments because you have to spend money on something or take care of a health situation that arose or whatever it may be, and you're all in the market and the market's crashing, what do you think the sentiment is of you saying, okay, I'm going to sell out so I can take the money? Well, it's going to hurt because you're like, man, the market's down and I need to take money out to do what I need to do. You know, the old mantra, you know it, it's been said before, buy low, that's right, and sell high. You want to buy low and you want to sell high. That's just the way, core principles, it's kind of like investing 101. And when you're in the retirement phase of life, unfortunately, if you are all in the market, sometimes, in my experience of what I've seen over 20 plus years of helping families, is if they're all in the market, you don't have the luxury. If an emergency arises, you don't have the luxury of saying, I'm going to wait for the market to recover in order to sell. Now, why does that matter? Well, it matters because you can make sure that your investments are aligned in such a way that you are just not only dependent on stock market volatility. That's really, really, really important, especially in the retirement phase of life. Now, again, if you're younger and you're listening to this and you're like, Mike, you're spending a lot of time on this show talking about folks that are in the retirement phase and that's not me. Well, that's true. But hopefully you're learning from this so you can say, okay, as I invest my wealth and I grow my wealth, I can literally be in a place where I start to prepare for some of those things in advance. I mean, think about it like this. If you were going to take a road trip and you had no idea how to get where you're going to go, the chances of you getting to where you're going to go is slim to none, and Slim left town, right? So you're literally in a place where you're like, how am I going to get there? I don't even know. That's one of the benefits, regardless of the age that you are and regardless of where you are as you're listening to this show, you're going to have the opportunity to glean nuggets that can really help you better prepare for your future, or prepare well if you're already in the retirement and future phase of life. So this is so crucial, and it's an important topic that many people don't think about. Oftentimes they just think about what's the best opportunity for me to make money, what's the best opportunity to save money in taxes, what's the best opportunity for me to kind of transition this wealth to my kids and grandkids, et cetera. And those are all important topics, and that's one of the ways over the years that our team over at Leanonthewall.com has done a lot of planning to help families with those sorts of things. Those are all important things, and they got to be thought through, and there's obviously oftentimes ways to improve that. But what people don't often think about is some of the external factors that actually affect you while you're in this phase of life, the retirement phase of life, that actually did not affect you when you were younger. And if you don't address those factors, you're kind of going to find yourself getting caught in between the old rock and a hard place, and it's going to be a challenge along the way. So I want to encourage you to think about this, think about your process, and as always, as I land the plane on this show, I want to challenge you to be thinking about ways that you can add value to others around you, and by doing that, you will literally be living on purpose so you can live with purpose. Hey, thanks for tuning in. Hope you have a blessed day. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, click the notification bell as well, and share this show, whether it's podcast, YouTube, Facebook, whatever. Share this with some other folks that need to hear this, because as we all come together as a community, sharing this information to help families and help investors, we can literally help you become more empowered and live a life that's worth living. Have a good one. Talk soon. Thank you for listening to the Invest Well Show. Please note that this information shared on the show is not investment advisory advice, and it may not be reflective of your personal situation or the needs that you have. If you have questions specific to your financial situation, please make sure that you reach out to an investment advisor directly, or a tax attorney or tax coach or CPA to help you with your personal situation. Any additional questions that you may have, please make sure that you seek out a professional to get the guidance needed for your specific situation. Again, all content and information shared on this show is not to be deemed as specific investment advisory advice.